You're watching The Daily on Shaw TV Channel 4. I'm Kate Bergen, and today we are going to spend some time with artist Brendan Tang. He's going to show us the body of work that he's currently working on and has been since 2006-2007. It's called Manga Ormolu, and it really is fascinating. Brendan will be giving a talk in Nanaimo on July the 10th, and we'll have a little preview on that as well. Also in the lineup on this edition of The Daily Pet Tales, Kelly Robinson is here looking at some adorable bulldog puppies and learn about what's important to consider when picking a puppy. We're going to do Island Joyriders. Nikki Iwanishin takes a cycle trip to the central Vancouver Island region where she experiences, well, some sightseeing and the popularity of gourmet food. It's a true West Coast experience. Jocelyn Matwee revisits the Nanaimo Bar Trail here in Nanaimo, and James Green is paragliding off Dallas Road in Victoria. We're kicking things off, though, in the strawberry patch. You're watching The Daily on Shaw TV Channel 4. I'm Kate Bergen. This is Brendan Tang. He's been very kind and invited us into his parents' living room. Thanks, Kamala, this afternoon to have a look at his work. It's a series called Manga Ormolu. Now, you started working on it 2006, 2007.
Yep.
How many pieces in the whole series now?
Oh, in the whole series? I would say there's probably maybe about 30 plus, maybe 40 of them now in the series.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit less, I don't know.
Now, to tell our viewers what we're talking about, we don't have the actual pieces of art with us today because they're all in art galleries. Where are they? Where are the galleries?
They're in art galleries. There's, well, sometimes they're in Ontario. There's one in Vancouver that's got a lot of my work right now. So, and I'm also building up a new body of work or some more of these pieces for shows in October and in January and all this sort of stuff. I've got a piece in Montana right now. So yeah, that's like my other part-time job, just working on expediting this work.
Right, and I know the Nanaimo Art Gallery just purchased a piece for their permanent collection. Now, we've done a lot of talking, but we haven't actually looked. How do you describe the collection? We are using the laptop now to have a look.
Well, the work actually is a play with a very decorative art tradition where it was like an 18th century decorative art tradition where they would bring in these Chinese works, and to make it more relevant to a European sensibility, they would put all this gold filigree and gilded decorative stuff.
And that's going back how long?
This is like 18th century French and German practice, so way, way, way back. And they were making curiosity objects. And I saw this like in some history books that I was flipping through. And I really liked that idea, what was going on there. And what I did is I just sort of took all that gold filigree off conceptually and just replaced it with things that I'm excited about, like Chinese robot or Japanese robots and special effects and science fiction and all that blockbuster movie stuff. So that's kind of a lot where those influences kind of come in.
Someone on your blog commented that you're smashing cultures.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had the comment where I'm also smashing times too, because I've got this reference to a very ancient culture, or but then these things are still made today. Yeah. And then I have this very futuristic design that I'm sort of smashing it together. And I think that's one of the strengths of the work, because I think a lot of us sort of feel that way, like we're living in different worlds, and our parents grew up in a different time than we grew up in or are growing in, and our technology is rapidly changing. So the work kind of reflects that sensibility.
I asked you to pick about 5 pieces, and I think in the course of this interview we're actually going to edit in some images, but maybe you could click through just a couple here.
So this is how the work generally started when I started doing it, and it was definitely a lot more sort of one interacting with another or placed on another. And this is the piece actually that's in the Nanaimo Art Gallery collection.
Right. And you've gone with the software developer type labeling
type of labeling, yeah. And so this is a Manga Ormolu 2.0 O, and those are in reference. The 2.0 is the sub-series within the larger series, and then the O is where it fits on the timeline. And definitely, anybody that's ever changed their brake pads on their car will definitely recognize where I got some of my influences on this guy.
You're not a mechanic too,
No,
right? No,
good God, no.
Okay,
Yeah.
one more and we'll come back a bit later in this edition of the Daily. Wow.
Yeah, so this is a big jump in the work, and it's a 4.0, and I wanted to play with the Chinese vase and make it more fleshy or more like rubber or soft plastic. And so now the robotic parts are now squishing into it and shaping it and moving it a lot more. Okay. And yeah, we can talk about that a little bit more.
No, you're not Chinese, are you?
Actually, I am, half.
Okay.
So my dad is Chinese and my mom is East Indian. And my father was born in Trinidad, and so is my mom. Okay. And so and then I was born in Dublin, Ireland. So there's a little bit of sort of global traveling going on there.
And does that give you more cultural license, do you think, as a Chinese person to kind of mess with the tradition this way?
That's something that I do think about a lot, is where, I have this heritage, but then when I think about myself and how I carry myself, and when I've traveled abroad, I definitely feel really Canadian. Right. And so there's always that sort of push and pull that goes on there. Like on the exterior, people will assume certain things, but then once I open my mouth and start talking, then they'll be like, okay, this is a little odd or different, or maybe it's what I expected or not what I expected. Right. So yeah.
Okay, we can get more into how that plays into your work as well with the cultural aspect. You are watching The Daily on Shaw TV Channel 4. We're going to throw things over now to Nikki Iwanishin. She's going to tell us about Island Joyrider. She took a trip up island on bicycle to explore all of the fabulous things that are West Coast, including, of course, scenery and wonderful gourmet food. Before that, though, it's Jocelyn Matwee on the Nanaimo Bar Trail. You're watching The Daily on Shaw TV Channel 4. I'm Kate Bergen. Today we're hanging out with artist Brendan Tang. He's home for the holidays here in Nanaimo, and we're sort of perusing through his current body of work called Manga Ormolu. Before we go further, what does that mean? Manga Ormolu is the first part of it. Manga is in reference to the Japanese pop culture, specifically comics that I was really interested in. So that's where that comes from. And then Ormolu is that decorative art tradition that dates back to the 18th century. Okay. Yeah. You have quite a cultural background within yourself. Yeah. Take us through again where you were born. Okay. So my dad is Chinese and my mom is East Indian. My father is first generation Trinidadian, and my mom is probably about third or fourth generation Trinidadian. And I am first generation Irish because I was born in Dublin, Ireland. And then we immigrated to Canada in the early 80s for my dad was studying. And then we moved out to the island probably in the mid 80s. So you're a real living example of the malleability of a culture. Oh, yeah. And that's something that you've transferred through to your work. Yeah, I definitely think so. I feel like sometimes that the Manga Ormolu series can be autobiographical in a lot of different ways. With the 4.0 series, I was looking at the objects as being soft and squishy. Like when you think of Chinese porcelains or any porcelain. Which is the classic, you don't have it on this image here, but the blue and white. Right. When you think of those, you generally think of a very hard, solid object that if you were to squeeze it, it would crack or smash. And I was thinking of these objects as archetypes for culture or identity, in my case. And I wanted to reflect that malleability and how, at least for myself, when I travel around, I kind of change myself, and how we present ourselves on like Facebook or Twitter or in person or to our family is very different. They're all slightly different versions of ourselves. Right. And so I wanted to reflect that in the work itself. Okay, this is fascinating, and you can hear more about it. You're giving a talk on July 10th. July 10th, down at the Center for the Arts Nanaimo. And is this the kind of conversation and the kind of dialogue that will take place? Yeah, I'm going to be showing some of my travel pics because I've been traveling quite extensively for about a year and a half now, doing residencies. I started in Alberta, and then I went out to Ontario, and then I did one out in Holland for 3 months, and then came back, and all this sort of stuff. So talk a little bit about that, and then talk about the work as well. And I have so many more questions. I'm going to ask at least 2 more right now. I read your blog just very quickly before coming today, and someone said, fascinating. Are you going to dumb it down or sell out, not dumb it down, but sell out so that I can go buy it an IKEA or Pier 1 or something like that.
Yeah, well, you know, that has always been kind of a really, would be fun to get the work out as much as possible. And I've actually looked into, there's this real popular trend with vinyl toys. They're little collectible toys that they sell at comic book stores and other places. And I've often thought it would be fun to do a small edition of these little plastic toys, and you can get them made in China and all that sort of stuff. It would be really fun.
Okay, so that's a possibility in the future. Next question, which might not be such a succinct one. How was the work received? Is there anyone that sort of is a bit resistant to you manipulating these cultural reflections?
Well, I think there are some people that don't like the work from the get-go. And truth be told, when I started this work, my mom was just like, why are you doing all that stuff on top of those nice Chinese vases? And it was really hilarious. So, but obviously she's warmed up to the work a lot more over the years. But there are sometimes people are kind of curious about what's going on, and there are some times where there are some body references on the work that look really, they're almost grotesque in a little bit of a way. And so I think that kind of repulses some people. But you know, people are really nice in Canada, so they don't usually come up to me and tell me bad things.
Okay. And I really, it's beautiful, beautiful work, different,
you.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing today, Brendan. We're going to throw things over now to Kelly Robinson for another edition of Pet Tale. She's got some tips on how you can pick the right puppy. That brings us to the end of this edition of The Daily. We've had a very fascinating conversation with artist Brendan Tang, who's come home to Nanaimo for a little bit of a summer break. But it's not all play. He's going to be presenting at the Nanaimo Center for the Arts on Tuesday, July the 10th. And one more time, what can people expect from that presentation?
Yeah, well, I'm going to be talking a little bit about my educational history. I'm going to talk a little bit about the travels I've been doing and all that sort of stuff, and then straight into the body of work, the bigger body of work, the Manga Ormolu series. And then to sort of wrap it up, I'm going to show some little side projects that I've been working on, what's on the back burner, and then some really big collaborations that I'm excited about.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to have to try to make some room in my calendar for Tuesday, July the 10th. Thanks, Brendan. That brings us to the end of this edition of The Daily. We'll see you next time.